Welcome to Navigating Solo, the brand new exciting podcast for Single Adult Ministry of the United Pentecostal Church. I'm Debbie Saiz. I'm the National Singles Ministry Director, and I'm just excited that you've joined us, and I know that this podcast is going to bless you for many times as you hear the exciting guests that we have lined up coming in the next few weeks. And today I'm sitting here with our host, and I'm excited that Dr. Lorraine Orozco is sitting here with me today. I like to call her Dr. Lorraine. And Dr. Lorraine, welcome. I first met her probably 19 years ago. She was a young Bible college student. And now here we are sitting here today. And Dr. Lorraine, you have your own podcast, and she's done a lot of amazing things, and she is single. And I believe she comes to this table with a lot of great things. Dr. Lorraine, share just a few things about yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I am just honored to be a part of this amazing project for the Single Adult Ministry. And this podcast, as you said, is going to bless so many people. But just a couple of things about me. I did go to Jackson College of Ministries, and that was when your father, Dr. Fred Foster, was the president at that time. And what an amazing journey that was for me. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, and eventually went to school at the University of Arizona, pursued some degrees in counseling, went to Urshan Graduate School of Theology, also Liberty University, finished a Doctor of Ministry in Pastoral Counseling, worked as a pastoral counselor, and doing as a family pastor full-time at a church. And currently I am in a marriage and family therapy licensure program, will be a licensed associate marriage and family therapist next year. A couple of other things about myself. I love meeting new people, going to new brunch places. I love traveling. And I am just really excited to talk about all of the wonderful things that we are going to discuss about singles ministry. So it's good to be here today with you.
Man, that's so exciting, and I know we have a lot of great guests, men and women, singles, and then other people who are impacting single adults, and so we're just excited to what God is going to do through this podcast, and I'm excited just to be able to share some things today with us. And so, Dr. Lorraine, I'm just going to kind of let you take over.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about you, Sister Saiz, because like you mentioned, you are the National Director for Single Adult Ministries, and you have been doing this for a long time now. And I wanted to come in and ask you, as we're launching this new podcast, where your burden came from, and just a little bit about you and how you started on this journey ministering to single adults.
Well, I was single until my mid-40s, 45, and God blessed me. I was a youth pastor for 14 and a half years with a very large youth group. My home church in West Monroe, Louisiana, the church is now the Pentecostals, and my dad was the pastor at the time. But I didn't know the journey God had for me. And so, I just felt a call to ministry. God called me into ministry, a woman in ministry. And when I became a youth pastor, there was no other women doing that, and especially full-time. And for years, there was no full-time women doing what I was doing. But God opened a lot of doors, and I'm thankful. And I began traveling. I traveled after 14 and a half years as a youth pastor. I traveled for 6 years full-time as a traveling to different churches all across our United Pentecostal Church. And during that time, right around, I was engaged, and they asked, we were soon to be engaged. We already were talking. And the Sunday school department asked me to become the national director. And I wasn't sure about it. And but I prayed about it. I talked to my pastor, my dad, and I talked to my mom. And I also talked to my future husband. And he's been a big supporter of my ministry from day one. But I remember I was at a conference that year. I was engaged. It was in June. And I was at a conference in Durham, North Carolina. We were having a national singles conference there. And I was speaking, and I was in the middle aisle, and I kind of had a vision while I was preaching that afternoon. And God spoke to me and said, "This is what I saved you for.
Wow.
This is why I kept you single, is your testimony will touch and bless others." And I was like, whoa. I mean, during the time I'm preaching, well, after my message that afternoon, a very nice-looking, handsome young man came up to me, and he talked to me and said, "Your testimony today really confirms some things in my life, and thank you for sharing it. Confirm what God's doing with me, why he's keeping me single." And I was like, okay, God, I got it. And so I realized, because see, a lot of singles don't understand why their life is where it is, why God has this and that. But I would say to singles, you don't know what God's doing. Now, I went on, even though I hadn't found the right one, I always knew, I felt I had a promise from God that the right one would come. And I put up with a lot of comments from people. You're still single, and especially as a woman. But I realized I had to take some steps. When I became a youth pastor, it was very uncommon for women to do things, and there was a lot of things said. But I'm thankful I had a dad. My dad, as you mentioned, Dr. Fred Foster, my pastor. But my brothers, my district superintendent at the time was Brother Tom Fred Tenney. He and Sister Tenney were big supporters. And then Brother Kevin and Sister Delisa Cox, who were district secretaries, were also big supporters of me, and he came on to be superintendent. But I was blessed in that as a young single woman, I could have ministry, and I went on and got my education and a lot of different things, but I didn't stop because I was single. I said, I've got to keep going. And so that's kind of where I believe why doors open, because I wasn't waiting for them. I was in the waiting period for, but I'm like, hey, I'm not going to sit at home and twiddle my thumbs.
Right.
And God kept opening doors for ministry, and I traveled in the United Pentecostal Church full-time for 6.5 years. And I was flying somewhere every week or driving to a city, within driving distance. But I have to say I was very blessed because God kept me busy and doing ministry to young people, then singles, and still youth camps and different things. And then I started doing a lot of ministry and leadership training and setting up ministries in churches. I just walked where God was opening doors.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that is an incredible testimony, sister. And I just appreciate you, Sister Saiz, just continuing to, walk through all the doors that God opened for you. And as a woman as well, who is also has a, minister's license, understanding that, us women, we continue just to move wherever God decides to take us, and knowing that, like you said, you can't just sit around and do nothing. Got to be busy doing something for the Lord, and then God will continue to bless it. So, I wanted to ask my next question, because you just talked about where this all kind of came from. And I wanted to ask, what has been the most rewarding thing about working with singles ministry that you have experienced since you became the director, or even since before when you were kind of working with singles ministry?
Well, it's been exciting to watch the ministry develop and kind of come into, in the last couple of years, it's really stepped into some things. We were under Sunday school under Brother Erickson and then Brother Cannon, and they were big supporters of singles. And then Brother Bernard, Dr. David K. Bernard, our General Superintendent, he felt that singles needed to be on its own, which it really needed to be, because single adults are 50.2% of our population. Singles are the number one population in North America. And so in most churches, not all denominations, not just United Pentecostal churches, but all denominations, 80% of new converts are single adults. I said that, and one of our prominent pastors came to me afterwards. He said, you kind of knocked me out when you said that, because I began to think and said, it's so true in our church. He said, and I began to look at my staff and a lot of that. And so it is true that 80% of new converts. So we've got to do something, give them a ministry. And so that's probably the most rewarding, is watching now as so many things are happening. And we met with the general board earlier this year, and so many superintendents are stepping in and getting new singles ministries in their district, and a lot of churches are. In fact, in Vermont, 2 weeks ago, they just had their first Vermont, Rhode Island, their first singles conference. And it was a very exciting time. And then, different Mass, Rhode Island are they're having, maybe I could Vermont, Rhode Island, and I think it's Massachusetts. I'm getting them kind of, I need to get them right here. But Debbie Farmer is our director in Massachusetts, and they are. She was put in as their district director and had such great acceptance and things at their district conference, and now they've got one coming up, their conference Labor Day weekend, I believe, sometime around then, Missouri. There's so many things happening that God is doing some amazing things in singles. I probably shouldn't have started mentioning that, but it's exciting to see what God is doing. And so I appreciate Brother Bernard in putting us where now under church advancement. And we are our own ministry, just like Spanish ministries, building the future, and multicultural, so many things. And so it's an exciting time to be a part of single adult ministry. And that, to me, has been so rewarding to watch the journey. And there's been so many amazing district directors, district superintendents, pastors, our our general board, our executive officials, Brother Bernard. Brother Bernard has been such a motivating leader and such a push as a part of this, and our assistant general superintendent, our general secretary, also. It's exciting.
So that is very exciting, and I love that the enthusiasm that things are happening, and thankful so much for Brother Bernard and his vision. But I wanted to ask, so as we're kind of talking about some of the rewarding things that are going on and you have seen throughout the years, I wanted to know, what is the mission? So for people that are not familiar with Single Adult Ministry, what is the mission of this ministry?
Well, Single Adult Ministry, or we call it SAM, and our vision is to provide education, growth, care, and fellowship focused on the unique life situations of single adults. And these pillars of education, growth, care, and fellowship is what we want to focus on, because our target audience for singles are young adults, young singles, never married, divorcees, widows and widowers, and then single parents. And a new part is a lot of single grandparents are raising grandchildren. So we're trying to do some ministry to that. So that's our target audience. And we have some new ministries that are springing up. A new one is men's ministry, single men, and there's some new things that are coming, and you'll be hearing about that. Also, for suddenly finding those that are single, or those who are in ministry who suddenly find themselves single again in ministry, whether it's through divorce or losing a spouse. And so there's some exciting things, and even for some younger singles, different things.
So I wanted to ask also, so we know what SAM is, as you just mentioned, the mission. So what is SAM not, Single Adult Ministry? So sometimes people have a kind of a misconception of what that is, and sometimes when they think about single ministry, they have this idea, but can you just tell us what it's not, what it isn't, so that we kind of have a clear idea about what this ministry is?
Well, you kind of made me chuckle with that, but it's not a dating ministry.
All right.
It's not where, what a lot of people think that. No, single adult. Now, I will tell you, we've taken some cruises and trips in the past where the youngest on the trip, one was to Greece, and the youngest on that trip was 18, and the oldest was 81. And I have a really cool picture of that young 18-year-old young man with his arm around that cute little 81-year-old that was, she could keep up with anybody. But we've had some young people, and not just young people, but singles, meet people at our conferences or on trips or get-togethers, and they end up getting together. That's okay.
Right.
And what a better place than to meet somebody would be there. But most of the time, singles are coming, they're looking for a community, a community of likewise Christian, Holy Ghost filled, Jesus name baptized people that they can share and relate to. And so, but if something happens, hey.
Yeah, that's right. We're open.
There you go, Dr. Lorraine. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
If something comes out of it, then, that's okay. Because God does things right. And so I I would just say today that single adult ministry, what it is, it's just a community of likewise thinking. These singles, they make lifelong friends. They make friends that they will travel together, and then they go to other conferences together, or they show up at each other's churches, and just they have made lifelong friends. And I think of just recently here in my home district, the SoCal, our camp meeting was just a week and a half ago, and the singles had their first event on Friday night. And they met at Raising Cane's, which is a chicken place, but they're open late. And here in SoCal, you can usually our evenings are cool, so they have a great outdoor area, and it was just a fun time of these friends. They have made friends. They are male, female, all of this, they have just made dear friends that they of all ages, and they enjoy the friendship, and it's a community that they realize, it's a safe place for me.
Right.
That I can go and be with other singles.
And that really is, I love that you said that, because it really is a community. And I think, too, that building this community when maybe you have people around you that are married or are not in the same situation that you are, and when you find these people or your people that know maybe the hurt or the transition in your life that you're going through, and you're able to have those conversations, and knowing that they understand where you are in that season of your life. I mean, what a gift that is to have those friends and those people in that community. So I love that you mentioned that's what that really is. And like you said, if you meet somebody, if God, works that out, well, praise the Lord. We're not gonna say no to that. So absolutely. And
no, that's good. It's very true. Very true.
So I wanted to also ask you, so how would you like to see Single Adult Ministry, Sam, grow and move forward? What is your vision for the future for this ministry moving forward in the next, year or two, or even 5 to 10 years? What do you want that to look like?
Well, our goal is to get Single Adult Ministry in every district, and with their own Single Adult Ministry. And then also every church to realize, we need to be ministering to them, and the fellowship, and it is exciting, and that is, and to see, and that's happening right now. We're very excited. This podcast, I'm so excited about this. And I appreciate you, Dr. Lorraine, and you feeling a burden for this, and to see where all we're going to go with this, and that weekly we'll be coming into the cars, the homes, wherever, that people are listening. But also, we want to grow the ministry for single men, and which we have some amazing leaders, that Brother Daryl Cooper, who is the Indiana Singles Director. He and his wife pastor in Indiana, Sister Brooke Cooper, and they have a great thing happening there in Indiana. He is leading that, assisted by some other great leaders. And so there's going to be some exciting things coming with that. You'll be hearing soon of some things coming later this year and into 2024. And there's just a lot of things. Our Single Again in Ministry, we want to grow that, and at General Conference, we have hosted for a few years Sister Cheryl Carter, our National Secretary for SAM. She helped put this together and start this along with her husband at General Conference. And we have kept it going. And so we have a breakfast, usually on Thursday morning at General Conference. And it's for those who find themselves single again in ministry. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful time of singles to come together. And I'll be honest with you, it's not easy when someone's just gone through a divorce or someone has just lost their spouse. And usually the first one they may not come to, but then they slip in, and I've had them come to the door and they just but they're like, I can't do it. And we understand that, because finding themselves single again in ministry, you've been married, and all of a sudden, that's gone. And so, but we've watched many of them come, and then they relax and realize, hey, this is a great community. Mm-hmm. These people here have been through what I've been through.
Yep.
And we can share together. And that breakfast is usually just a time of fellowship and sharing. And we have been able to connect people. This past year, we were able, in Orlando, we were able to connect some brand fresh ladies that had lost their spouses, and one, a couple of them traveled, and one was a pastor's wife, and it was very hard for them to come, but they came together. Mm-hmm. But they left there feeling lifted up because they found a community. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about, is just finding this community. So there's so many things that we're excited, some new curriculum, some different things that we are in the process of putting together, some video teaching and different things that, so it's, the sky's the limit, and SAM is coming on, and it's coming on full strong. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited.
So one last question for you. I wanted to know, we talked about the podcast because this is a new and it's exciting endeavor, but how do you believe that this new podcast, Navigating Solo, is going to help the mission of single ministry? And what kind of things are you excited to, topics or things that you're excited to see happen with the podcast?
Oh, I think it's going to help provide education, provide growth, provide care and fellowship, focusing, like our vision says, on the unique life situation of single adults, that we can educate and through love and care and then provide activities. They're going to find out about a lot of things besides our social media. And they'll be talking about, we'll even be live sometimes from conferences or different things. So the fellowship and all of this, because being a single adult, there are unique life situations.
Right.
And that's what I see this. We're going to focus on those. You'll be talking to different singles who what they've been through in their life, or maybe there's some amazing authors out there. You'll be talking to them. There's some that are doing unique, amazing things. Right now we have 9 single adult missionaries. Mm-hmm. And we need to focus on that. So we're going to be able to talk to them and find out their unique situations and things. So the sky's the limit, Dr. Lorraine. Look at your life, and here you are today leading this. But you've done a lot of amazing things, and that have led you to where you are now Dr. Lorraine in ministry. And so there's a lot of amazing people, but there's also some amazing, amazing people that aren't single that are working with singles ministry, or they have a burden. Pastors, some district superintendents, some people that just single adult leaders, district leaders, or whoever that have a burden and have some unique things that with singles. So I just think this is going to be an amazing, and I believe every week that it drops, it's going to be an exciting time for singles.
Mm-hmm. And we had talked about that there's going to be a lot of different subjects that are going to be ranging from, never been married, like you mentioned, to newly single. And so we're going to have some really great speakers that are going to be sharing their wisdom with us on the podcast. And so that is going to be something that you're definitely going to want to tune into. And our closing remarks, Sister Debbie Saiz, I wanted you to just like to say anything encouraging to our singles, everybody that is listening to this first podcast of Navigating Solo. What are the last words that you would like to share with everybody today?
Well, one other thing I meant to add about the podcast is that there will be men, women, maybe you'll interview a man and a woman together, or different men, single women, and singles of all ages. So we're going to try to reach everybody with this podcast.
Right.
I would just say today, make the most of where you are. And as Paul said, learn to be content in whatsoever state you are. And do things and get out from your situation. Rise above of where you are, because God can use every place that you are. And if you're hearing this today, God is saying to you, make the most of who you are, where you are right now, because it's only going to catapult you into where God has for you, because God has amazing things for every one of us. And we have to face every morning. Get up in the morning. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I'm going to rejoice in it. And you know what? I would even tell you to look in the mirror and say, you know what? There's nothing that's going to happen to me today that me and God can't handle together. Because God has you where you are, just as God spoke to me at that singles conference and said, this is why I've kept you single.
Wow.
And you know what? I had to learn to be content wherever God had me and make the most of it and not dwell on what the bad, but I always tried to find good in everything. And you know what? It's an amazing life if you will choose that it's amazing. And everywhere you are, whoever you are, I've learned to be content, God. So you know what, God? It's a good life, and I'm going to make the most of it because you've put me here right now. So God, thank you. Thank you for this. And God, I love you, and it's going to be an amazing life because single adults are not misfits.
That's right.
They're pretty amazing people. And you today smile and say, me and God got this. Because being a single, it's a great life.
Amen. Those are some good words. Those are some really great words, very encouraging. And I thank you so much for sharing all of your burden and your testimony and your words with us today, Sister Debbie Saiz, our Director of Single Adult Ministries. We look forward to having you on again and speaking to us and all of our other guests that will be with us. So to everybody that is listening to Navigating Solo, our new Single Adult Ministry podcast, God bless you all and stay tuned.